So I know it's been a minute since I've uploaded any sort of vlog style video to this channel, and I just want to let you know it's incredibly hard because obviously if you follow me on any of the social media, you'll just see me uploading me driving because it's pretty much the easiest thing I can upload. And it's hard to upload these videos because it's so time consuming and it does slow the process down. But I asked myself, what would I find interesting if I was on the other side of the camera? And I find even though this car is incredibly rough looking, I know you've probably seen some videos of it, there's a reason. But anyways, the fact is I'm one of the only ones in the world that I'm aware of that has a fully built twin turbo pro drift car Mustang with a Coyote. There's no one else that I know of, because if I did, I would have asked them for help. So there was a lot of R&D that went into this, but yes, I do know it looks rough. There is an issue behind that. There are no longer any more wide body kits available for this car that have the complete fenders, because this whole car is fake, as in like this fender, I have no fenders, real fenders. These are complete over fenders. So this company that makes them has now stopped selling them because there's not enough demand. So I just haven't been able to. But anyways, so we're gonna go over, this is a 2020 Mustang GT. It was a stock 2020 that I just put an angle kit and coilovers on. And then I had an incident in the back about 2 or 3 years ago where I hit the wall really bad. And so I ended up tube chassis in the rear, which you can see it's all hollow. Now, I've been kind of secretive on how much this car actually weighs. I give random numbers to random people because it's kind of hard for me to get an actual number, but the actual number for this car is about 3,100 pounds, fully loaded, full gas tank and everything else. There's still a lot more weight to be lost. We still have a lot of factory metal in the car that we can remove, but that was a priority, getting the weight down. That's why we did the tube chassis. And the engine, we originally had a nitrous engine. So this was originally a Gen 3 2020 Coyote long block. We ran it for about 2 years with full bolt-ons and 100 shot of nitrous. We had issues with the nitrous because of bottle temps, depending on the tracks we went to, because I live in SoCal. So some of the tracks, it was super hot, so our bottle pressure was just so high that the solenoid would literally not open during certain runs. Even if the purge solenoid, everything, the pressure would just build up so quickly. Or we'd go to really cold areas and we'd have to heat the bottle up so much just to get it to work. And we had so many issues with the nitrous system. We even had a mistake on my part, which I think contributed to this engine eventually, the original engine eventually blowing up, where I forgot to put the nozzle back in and we sprayed bottle pressure for 3 laps. I have, some of you who follow me obviously know I have the black Mustang, and that's been twin turbo for now 5 years. I really haven't had, hold on, wait, hold on. I'm about to say something that's gonna jinx me. I haven't had any major problems, knock on wood, with the black car. So we went turbo on this. Now that lasted about a year and a half before the piston ring broke on this cylinder right here. So I had a spare short block and I was gonna just put it in stock, but then, as some of you might know, I'm a little bit overzealous when it comes to builds. So I did a fully built engine. And then some of you might know that I had an instantaneous crankshaft failure on that new engine. We don't have a definitive answer on that, but you can see right there. There is our broken crankshaft. There's our broken snout. So that happened right after the dyno day. And our old turbo setup had some cheap Chinese turbos because they were never meant to be on the car for longer than one event. and I thought they'd be broken after one event. They actually lasted a long time for cheap, crappy turbos. Now we have some good ones, not sponsored by them. I have TurboSmart everything. I have TurboSmart wastegates now. I had Chinese before. I have TurboSmart turbos, 6262s. Now, I did go water cooling. The old turbos were oil cooled, and a lot of other teams will run just oil cooled turbos. It's a real debate on whether you need water or oil. My mentality is, because I drive the living crap out of this car, that I think the water is going to keep the turbo temps down. So, what right now we have, this car is making currently, because that's probably what you want to know. This car is making 800 horsepower to the wheels on, I believe the lowest boost we saw was 6.5 PSI. We have 5 PSI springs, but because of back pressure, we're still making about 6.5 PSI even on fully open. At full kill mode, it makes 1100 horsepower to the wheels. That's on a dyno pack dyno on the lowest setting as well. And we've already compared that dyno to other dynos. That's actually pretty damn close to your standard Mustang roller dyno, because we actually have the correction ratio set incredibly low. So the numbers I give you are actually, believe it or not, if we took it on a roller dyno, it would probably be higher. So we've actually made the correction ratio as how can I say this, as non-bullshit as possible. So anyways, so some of you saw the video I made. We had a test day with this, with the final engine. So far so good, but with everything new, there's always going to be new issues. So let's explain the issues, and then I'll also explain why the engine bay looks like how it looks. Okay, so we had an oil spraying everywhere. You can actually see the windshield is coated in oil. That is not from the catch can. The catch can is actually completely empty, so we have almost zero blow by. What we ended up having is, it looks like the oil is actually coming out of the front crank bolt. I have a Kinetics crank saver bolt, and I was so concerned ever since the crankshaft failure over there of how to install that I didn't put any gasket maker in there, which I do on the other cars. So we're going to fix that today. I'm going to have that in the video. The other things, let's go over. So we're learning, right? So I have a Link G4 on this. I'm the only one in drifting running a Coyote with a Link G4 turbo, I should say, or Gen 3 is what I meant to say. I'm the only Gen 3 Coyote with a Link in all of drifting and road racing, I think. So the O2 sensors went bad a while ago because the old turbos were pissing out oil onto them. The turbo seals were blown, and I wanted to cheap out and buy some Amazon China's O2 sensors, and those have failed. So today we have to replace the O2 sensors. I bought some brand new Link O2 sensors. Contemplating getting the billet valve covers. Are incredibly expensive because it's Gen 3 motor. Now another thing, I'll go over that steering shaft rubbing. Ride height we already did. We actually had the car incredibly low because the new angle kit I'm running, Wisefab, it dropped the car about an inch because they're actually drop knuckles. I'll explain that later. And the other big thing was power steering was shutting off randomly. We think that was an overheat protection because the car got so hot, and coolant bypass. So we were having, believe it or not, I know this sounds crazy, but this car actually didn't really have any overheating issues. I know with this engine bay, you're like looking at this and going like, no way in hell you didn't have overheating issues. But believe it or not, we did not. But now we do. After the rebuild, we do. And we used to run the factory heater hose just like you'd. So it was a big fat hose. So there's only theories because we don't have a definitive answer on this. What we're seeing now is really high oil temps, which we never saw before. We're running the same oiling system. My assumption is maybe this is a -6 coolant bypass hose. This actually equalized the coolant from this head to that head. And -6 is way smaller than the hose we used to have. So I'm going to run this up to a -8, and we're going to add the MMR bypass to the back of the block. So we're going to have more equalizing happening all over. We're going to do that today. And we might install an oil cooler right here. I'm not sure on that because the problem with that is you have to delete the factory oil cooler. And the problem with that is that's where I'm getting the coolant feed for these, the bypass the hoses. So we'd have to make some other solution for that. So that's what I'm debating on whether doing it or not. I might do that next time. We're not sure yet. That's pretty much the only things we really had. Now, the last thing I'll explain is this mess. Yes, you're asking yourself, Alex, don't you run a shop that builds cars for a living? Haven't I seen some cars built by you? They do not look like this. It's my car for one, so fuck you. And it's worse inside, actually. It's much worse. You can sort of see the, I don't know if you can see it in the video, but there is a mess of wires all in here. And what that is basically we went through 3 iterations of the engine harness and 2 iterations of the body harness. We made a stupid decision of buying a pre-made body harness for universal race cars. That was a mistake because in the end we found out we actually only needed like 5 wires for the whole entire car. Because again, this is a race car. I have a daily, so I don't need this to be running on. All it needs is headlights, taillights, windshield wipers, just because it rains for certain drift events, and brake lights. That's it. That's all it really needed. So there's a lot of spare wires there. And then this mess is because I was going through so many iterations of the engine harness that I wanted to have plenty of extra wire so I can cut and reattach everything. But laziness basically popped up in my life. Not laziness, just more of like I'm so busy with, running multiple businesses and doing multiple things that I just never had the time to actually end up tightening this up, because we actually have military connectors to separate the harness from the inside the outside. And eventually I want to go to PDM, which is a power distribution box, which deletes relays and everything else like that. So it's just, I'm giving you a bunch of excuses. That's all these are. These are just excuses. But I don't think we're going to fix that in this video. But if you do like this video and I get enough views, I will film that, because that is a major undertaking. I know it only looks like 4 or 5 wires I have to get rid of there, but actually I have to cut all the wires, repin them into the new l-spec plugs. So you have just quick connects right here. So you just go boop, boop, and then the whole engine comes out of the car. That's what I want to do, and also refinish the harness, because the harness has actually been modified a few times. Well, I might as well explain this in this video as well. So for those of you that are technically minded in this, so you're probably asking, why did you have to go? Some of you are probably asking, why did you have to go through 3 different harnesses? What's so different from a Gen 2 and Gen 3? So the Gen 3 has 2 things the Gen 2 does not have. One, it has direct injection. That's not that big of a deal. But the variable valve timing in this, in the Gen 3 and Gen 4, the new Mustangs, the way variable valve timing works on these, it has way more adjustment. But if you're wondering why the Gen 2 makes 420 horsepower and the Gen 3 and 4 make nearly 500 horsepower, is because of how much variable valve timing there is. The camshaft sprocket can move. I believe, I could be wrong, it's at 68 or 78 degrees advance and retard. And because of that, they have a very weird cam lobe on the back, how it measures timing. And also the sensor for the crank sensor is completely different for the Gen 2 and Gen 3. It runs a reluctor in the Gen 2, which is just a pulse into a 2-wire crank sensor. And then the Gen 3 runs a 3-wire sensor, which is way more accurate. But the problem is no one has that much data, because almost everyone just ends up not doing the R&D and just going straight into Gen 2. So unfortunately, because we ran out of time to actually really figure out how to get the Gen 3 crank setup working, what we did to this engine is we converted the crank signal at the back to Gen 2. So we rewired it for a Gen 2 reluctor. We had to do a cam sync style. So it's very hard to see, but basically most cars have like On the cam, they have like little fingers, like even amount of fingers, but the Gen 3 and Gen 4 have like 4 fingers and then 2 wide windows is what they're called. They're like big, thick chunks of steel. And that doesn't work because what the engine computer is looking for, it's looking for those little fingers, and it doesn't really read those windows. So we have a certain crank pattern to get that running. We had to unfortunately delete VVTi, which you say unfortunately, it's like, why is that big of a deal? But the problem is this car only makes 900 foot-pounds of torque at peak horsepower, or I think 890, I believe it is. The black car at less PSI makes 1100 foot-pounds of torque and comes on at least a 500 RPM sooner. So you lose, you gain turbo lag, which is not what you want. So you lose that and you lose torque without variable valve timing. Also with direct injection, you have less prone for pre-ignition. Also with direct injection, you don't have the spark getting blown out because I run 0.025 spark plug gap in the black car, and this one we run 0.013. I believe that's right, 0.00 or 013. So it's like we're talking like a hair, because without direct injection, the turbo boost is actually blowing the spark out. Now that's only the engine thing we had to figure out with this car. The biggest thing that we've had to figure out on this entire car is the handling. Now, some people who've driven with me will always note that either he's driving the best on the day or the worst. There's no in between. There's no average. What we ended up finding is the angle kit we were running was changing geometry depending on what angle you had it. So the old angle kit I had, if you were at max angle, it would have a certain type of caster. And if you were at mid-angle, it would have a certain type of caster, and another angle, you'd have a certain type of caster. So the front suspension was changing depending on where your car was on angle. So the new WiseFab kit, they thought about that. They re-engineered it so the caster is steady throughout the angle range, and my camber is, I believe, pretty steady too throughout the angle range, sorry. And because of that, literally the first lap out I ever had in this car with the new WiseFab kit, it's just bam, same thing over and over and over again. The other thing too we had is we were told that electronic steering, which these cars come factory with, which is that thing over there. I don't know if you can see it behind the RB26 there. It has almost no self-steer. Self-steer is where you go, let's say you're sliding, you're going whoop, and then whoop. And then on most cars, you just let go of the wheel and the wheel will spin in a degree. With this car, you do that, you do this, and then the wheel like slowly turns. It doesn't really, you actually have to physically turn it. Unfortunately, I never got the in-car video of it, but I'm sure there's plenty of it online to see the other guys who are still running electric steering. But doing a lap of any track in the old steering setup, I would literally be covered in sweat. Some of you may have seen the video I uploaded of me at the in-car, and now I'm just relaxing because now it has hydraulic steering. And that is, I'm not sure if I can show it. I have a S197 rack, which is the 2005 Mustang steering rack in this car. And I have a Dodge electric power steering pump. So what that means, for some of you who don't know, is that is like a normal power steering system. So usually you have a mechanical power steering pump, but this is an electric one. So basically we turn the pump on, which I'll do that now. Boop, and boop. You can, I don't know if you can hear it in the video, but that's the pump spinning up. The advantage of having a power steering pump over a mechanical pump is it's steady steering. It's the amount of assist you have is the same regardless of what RPM your engine's at, because if you have a hydraulic pump that's mechanical, you have different assists depending on how much revving you're doing. And I have no steering wheel on this, and you can see, turns easy. I can turn it without a steering wheel. That's how easy it is. So that is the two big things I needed for this car to drive good. So now the car drives good. And today now that I've explained sort of where we're at with this car, because I don't know if I ever made a video on that, now we're gonna fix the issue. So today, like I said, we're gonna fix that oil leak. We're possibly going to fix the steering bind. Oh, that's what I forgot to say. So this turbo kit, now, okay, the reason why I'm not running a Helion kit on this car, the Helion kit is far superior to temps, power delivery, turbo lag, everything. The problem with that is two things. One, turbos are on the bottom. That normally isn't really an issue, but unfortunately we run tracks in the rain and I do not want to suck water in. And then number two, the Helion kit has the charge pipes, these things right here, running under the suspension. So it would be under these, the subframe. I'm not sure if you can see that. And because of how low we run the car, we would be ripping off the charge pipes every lap. There's just no way of doing it. So we had to run this kit. I'm not going to say it because I'm not necessarily happy with it, because we've had to modify the living shit out of it. So there's very little left of that kit that I bought. Now, in order to run it, they have, this is a down pipe. This is the pipe that comes off the turbo. And then you have the headers, which come up. And the down pipe goes around here. Now, what they did, which is not the greatest idea, but honestly, it's pretty much what you had to do. Sure, later on we can figure out an alternative way, because the biggest problem with this, the Coyote V8, is it's a high angle engine. I believe it's a 60-degree engine, while like LS's are like, I think, lower. I could be wrong on that. But anyways, steering shaft is right there, and they actually like welded a little like hole in it. Like I'll show it to you later in the video. But yeah, now it's currently rubbing on that, so we're getting some weird steering feeling because it's rubbing on the thing. So we're gonna do some ghetto adjusting to that. And okay, so what we did here, we removed the Kinetics crank saver stud, and what we did is we took some gasket maker, 3-bond right there. We put a little bit on the like thread bit. We put just a little bit at the edge. Sorry, at the far end, not the inside edge. We just have ARP lubrication for the other put. So we did that, and then what we did is we also torqued it like 100 times right there, because I do not want to have crank snapping again. So we verified it's 120 foot-pounds of torque on this crank stud. We verified it at least 100 times. I also did that. I pulled the drive belt off while I had the crank stud out, because I don't want to take any risks. Next up, probably something going on there. A little bit of leaks there. Don't know what that's from. Have to figure that out next. All right, so next step is we're going to replace these O2 sensors with the proper Link Bosch sensors on both sides, because we're getting crazy readings on those. And then I'm going to pull this off. Let me get a light. So we have, I don't know if you can see it, but the steering shaft, it is clearing it. It's just, it's rubbing on the heat wrap I added. What they did is, I'll show you a better picture once I have the pipe out. What we're gonna do is a temporary fix. The real fix would be remaking this entire pipe and how it's designed. But for now, that's gonna take a lot of man hours and a custom fabrication of a pipe. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna do the getaway. We're gonna use Thor's hammer and knock a little bit more clearance. This would be a big issue if we were trying to make big horsepower, but we're not. We're only spinning this car to like 10 PSI, so not a lot of boost. So let's do that next. Okay, so we removed the heat wrap and we tried adjusting the pipe. I added a bracket for the exhaust to keep it like this way more. And the real problem is that this pipe was made incorrectly. So that little divot they took out of the exhaust pipe needed to be more this way. So what we're gonna have to do is remake this pipe, probably change the design. But what I ended up doing to fix our problem for now is I did the very bad trick, which I took an air hammer and I just air hammered a gap so that it is not touching the steering rack anymore.
So it will work for now. What I'll end up doing is taking it to a buddy's shop who he only does fabricating, and I'll probably have him redesign this entire downpipe setup, like the whole thing. Probably not going to be cheap, but you know, gotta fix it. So while I'm under here, I might as well explain what we have going on. So what we have is we have a lower control arm from a buddy of mine, based off of the Hotline kit, and it's got a different mount for true coilover, because these Mustangs come with a what's called a divorce spring. So they have the spring over here and then the shock over here, but this is a true coilover setup. We have our axles. These are the G-force axles, the highest ones, because obviously our car makes a lot of horsepower. Very thick, very big. We have our BMR suspension. We have the BMR lower control arm toe arms and the upper control arm camber arms. I do strongly recommend that if for any type of Mustang. We have the modified subframe for our winter's quick change. Now, as for setup, if you are running a Mustang, what I recommend is either a negative 0.5 camber or a positive maybe 1.0 camber for the rear, for peak contact. For comp, I don't recommend anything more than 1/2 inch total toe in. That's the wheel in, so that's what toe in is. It's imagine your feet, right? And then toe in, toe out, toe in, toe out. So you want toe in. For comp, 1/2 inch total toe in, maybe 1/4 inch total toe in if you're just having fun, maybe 0 if you really want to maximize your tire life. Toe isn't that important in my experience for Mustangs. There is a large debate on this adjustable I-link, camber I-link. That changes the geometry of the suspension going up and down. I'd rather not go into that because honestly, I haven't gone that deep into it. I found a setting I like and I've left it at that. Big thing, no matter what you want to do with a Mustang, is you have to lock out these subframe washers. That's actually what causes these whole rear ends to load up and then unload and then spin out and ram into crowds. We don't have the factory fuel cell in here anymore. Not a recommendation to get rid of it. The only reason why we got rid of it is because of sloshing. So we had to keep the tank full in order to prevent it from starving fuel because of the high demand for fuel. That's why we went the fuel cell, which is back here. That is our little tow hitch, not tow hitch, the jack point, so you can jack up the rear end because you can't jack up on the winters. We have our Andrews dog box you have right here. We run a GT500 oil pan. I do not strongly recommend this. The only reason I went this is because it has the baffles inside of it, so it's impossible to starve the engine, but it does add a lot of weight and a lot of oil. This thing takes 13.5 liters of oil. So I would recommend you actually get the GT350 oil pan for your Mustang. That still has the baffling, not as good as the GT500, but it's cheaper, it's lighter, and only uses 11 liters of oil. These Gen 3s take a lot of oil. The Gen 2s only take about 8.5, but honestly, I'd rather more oil than less. Here is our S197 steering rack, you can see. The WiseFab kit allows us to bolt it straight in. So you modify the subframe and it just bolts in so you can just get off the shelf. We have my favorite part on the car, which is the WiseFab suspension. You gotta love that WF. We have feel coilovers. Honestly, the customer satisfaction I have for this is like a 10. They do exactly what you want. They are super helpful. And for what you get, best bang for buck. Like honestly, they don't sponsor me at all, but they are the best bang for buck. Like literally that you get a $10,000 coilover for $10,000 coilover for half the price essentially. And they'll valve it to whatever you do, and they're local to me, so if there's a horrible situation, I can literally drive out there and go get a new shock. So great company. I honestly strongly recommend that for any form of driving. If you could just call them if you're concerned about it, you can literally just call them and say, hey, I want a super comfortable coilover. They'll freaking build it for you right there on the spot. You can see more of our coolant line setup for the turbos. You can see that, a little bit of a nightmare. We'll probably have to redo that if we're going to do that oil cooler. And as for suspension settings in the front, I just use exactly what WiseFab recommends, the exact alignment settings that they recommend, and it has been great. I run the zero toe in and the zero toe in the front. I like the way it feels with the WiseFab. Did not like zero toe with the other angle kit I ran, but I do like it with this. So everything's good there. The only thing that I find is there still is sort of a discussion amongst the drifters of these cars of running the car with negative and positive rake. So you have positive rake where the front end's higher, and you have negative rake where the front end's lower. Now, this was not my fault at all, as in like it was a complete sort of just my laziness. These knuckles, unlike my last knuckles, are drop knuckles, so it lowered the front like almost an inch, and I didn't want to do the coilover, so I just ran it on the first round that I ran with these, and the car handled amazing. And if you look at another professional drifter, James Dean, versus 2 years ago versus now, you'll notice his RTR car runs a negative rake. So they run like this now, while before they were like this, which is basically putting all the load in the front versus all the load in the rear. So if you run this, you're going to have peak grip in the rear, and your car is going to be fast under load. So your car is going to go sideways really fast. But in exchange, you have issues with transitioning where you lose steering input. Now, if you are a Chelsea Denofa, that is perfect for you. You great, absolutely perfect. You are going to win championships. You are the man, right? But if you are an average, normal driver, you're just like everyone else. You want to feel the steering. You want the car to respond. You want the car to be consistent. I recommend running a negative rake. So lower in the front, higher in the rear. Obviously as low as you can get without hitting stuff. We are actually having to raise the car up because we are hitting stuff. So we're going to damage our suspension because of how low we are right now. So unfortunately we did have to go up a little higher. We're only going an inch, probably half an inch higher. But yeah, we are hitting. So we have to go higher because of the tracks we run. So yeah, that's the biggest thing. That's the biggest thing that I've noticed is having the negative rake on the car. I think that besides the WiseFab, obviously the WiseFab is a big contributor to it, but having that front grip, because before when I do transitions or if I high throttle, the car would do a one wheel, which looks cool, no question, looks cool as hell. But I've noticed the car is way more predictable when both tires are touching the ground. Now, the only other thing I'm going to experiment on the off season, because the biggest problem why I haven't done it yet is I want to start experimenting with sway bars. I think this car could be peak performance with sway bars installed, but however to do that I have to change my spring rates, so, and possibly even the valving on the shock. So we're gonna probably buy a few options of springs and put a custom sway bar in here just to have it adjustable in here, and also, you know, fit my turbo lines and everything, because I think that is going to be the key. And now, why do I think that? The reason why I think that is with a sway bar, it does reduce the amount of effective grip we have under drift. But what it also does is it allows you to transition and allows the suspension to be loaded or preloaded after you transition. So what that allows you to do is a quicker flick. So you go from one direction to the other, and that allows the suspension to have less like sway, hence why it's called a sway bar, right? But yeah, the exchange is less sway you have, the less effective tire grip you have. And then we go down the whole issue where the series I'm currently in is a 300 treadwear series, so we don't have a lot of tire grip, and that completely changes when you go to like something like Drift Masters, where they have essentially a drag radial in it, where you're actually trying to take grip out of the car because it has so much grip that you're literally bogging a 1,000 horsepower engine. So that's another issue too. Like, is a sway bar going to work for the series I'm in right now? We don't know. We got to experiment. That's why I'm not currently doing it. That's pretty much the very rough cover. We got what we wanted to do today. I also replaced the O2 sensors Those are brand new. I don't know if you can see it. Of course you won't. I got the, brand new O2 sensors in there now. I don't like the placement. Might have my guy remake that. Yeah, so yeah, that's pretty much it. It's rough. I'm not happy with it myself. Yeah, that's why I'm kind of in the mind right now that I think if we go any further within professional drifting, I think the next step would be changing cars. Still gonna go Mustang, but probably just a new chassis, and then take everything I've learned and just translate that into the new chassis, because this one's pretty beat up. So the long and short of this is, if you're gonna compete in professional drifting, my honest to God recommendation is go with a proven chassis. Don't get a car that no one's done. Like if you're gonna do a Mustang, unfortunately, I'd recommend going to Gen 2 just because there's more parts available for it. The Gen 3s, unfortunately, you'd have to talk to me. That's the sad part, is you'd ask like 5 other Mustang owners and they would all just point you towards me. So I would be the end all be all knowledge for this chassis and even the Gen 4 because they're similar engines. But if you just want to have fun, any chassis is fine. The Mustang is great. I've had another video for that. Very simple, very quick forward. But yeah, that's I don't want to talk too long. This video's gone on way too long. But any questions in the comments, put them down below. Let me know exactly what you want to know, and I'll try to respond to them, because I'm pretty sure there's a million things I missed. Yeah, thank you for watching. If you've stuck around this long, I really appreciate it. You know, just throw a comment. I know it sucks even saying this, but you know, you got to hit a like, and you got to, you know, subscribe, because this adds like an extra hour to 2 hours, and then editing another 4 hours. So it's a lot of time, which is why you don't see a whole lot of videos from me, because, you know, I run a full-time job, and on top of that, I also try to run a race team. I didn't say I am, but I try. There's a lot of big things coming for this car. There's a lot of things that are coming out I can't talk about that this car is going to be used for. So there's a lot of big projects coming up with this car. So don't be surprised if you see my car in very crazy things in the future, because that's already been done. So it's already been said and done, but you may be seeing this car in things that you would never guess. But yeah, there's some projects coming up, so you'll see me there, and thank you for watching.